Have you ever sacrificed everything for someone you love, only to have them use that sacrifice to destroy your entire world? My name is Emma, and 6 months ago, I donated my kidney to save my sister's life. What I discovered last week will make you question everything you think you know about family loyalty and unconditional love. Because while I was recovering from major surgery, losing a promotion at work, and dealing with chronic pain from giving her a piece of my body, my sister Chloe was using my kidney as the perfect conversation starter to seduce my husband Tyler in our own bedroom. This is the story of how the most selfless act of my life became the weapon she used to betray me in the most unthinkable way possible. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. My story begins in Phoenix, Arizona, where I thought I was living the perfect life just 7 months ago. At 28, I had checked every box on my dream life list. I had landed my ideal job as a senior marketing coordinator at a boutique advertising firm downtown, where I was being considered for creative director. My husband Tyler and I had just celebrated our 3rd wedding anniversary with a romantic weekend in Sedona, and we were actively trying for our first baby. We owned a beautiful 3-bedroom house in a quiet neighborhood with a backyard perfect for the children we planned to have. But what made my life truly special was my relationship with my younger sister Chloe. At 26, she was my best friend, my confidant. It's a person I treasured most in this world besides Tyler. People often mistook us for twins, even though I'm 2 years older. And we wore that comparison like a badge of honor. We had the same chestnut brown hair, the same green eyes inherited from our mother, and the same infectious laugh that could fill any room. Growing up, we were inseparable. While other siblings fought constantly, Chloe and I were a team against the world. Our weekly tradition was Tuesday night dinners that alternated between my house and her apartment just 10 minutes away. Cook together, usually attempting some elaborate recipe we'd found on social media, laugh until our stomachs hurt, and share every detail of our lives. Tyler often joked that he felt like he had married both of us because Chloe was always around, but he said it with genuine affection. He treated her like the little sister he never had, and I loved him even more for embracing my family so completely. Chloe worked as a kindergarten teacher at the elementary school 3 blocks from her apartment. She had always been amazing with children, patient and creative in ways that amazed me. Her classroom was like a magical wonderland, decorated with hand-painted murals and filled with the sound of children's laughter. Parents specifically requested their kids be placed in Miss Chloe's class, because she had a reputation for making learning fun while genuinely caring about each child's individual needs. Everything changed on a seemingly ordinary Thursday morning. In September, I was at work reviewing campaign proposals when my phone rang with a call from Chloe. Her voice was shaking so badly I could barely understand her words. She had collapsed during recess duty and was being rushed to Phoenix General Hospital. By the time I arrived at the emergency room, Tyler was already there holding her hand while she lay pale and terrified on a hospital bed, surrounded by machines and medical equipment. The emergency room doctor, a kind woman named Dr. Rodriguez, explained that Chloe's blood work showed severely elevated levels that indicated acute kidney failure. They were running additional tests, but her kidneys were functioning at less than 15% capacity. The words hit me like physical blows. Kidney failure. My vibrant, healthy 26-year-old sister was facing a life-threatening condition that seemed to come from nowhere. Over the next 48 hours, our world turned upside down. More tests revealed that Chloe had a rare autoimmune condition that had been silently attacking her kidneys for months, possibly years. Her body had been compensating so well that she hadn't experienced obvious symptoms until the damage was already severe. Dr. Martinez, the nephrologist who became our primary contact, explained that Chloe would need immediate dialysis and would require a kidney transplant within the next 6 to 12 months to survive. The news devastated our entire family. Our parents, who lived in Tucson, immediately drove up and practically moved into the hospital waiting room. Mom cried constantly while Dad paced the halls making phone calls to every specialist he could. Tyler took time off work to help coordinate Chloe's care and handle the insurance paperwork. But I knew from the moment Dr. Martinez first mentioned transplant that I would be tested as a potential donor. The testing process was extensive and emotionally draining. Blood draws, psychological evaluations, physical examinations, and meeting. After meeting with transplant coordinators who explained every possible risk and complication, they wanted to ensure I fully understood that donating a kidney would change my life permanently. I would need regular medical monitoring for the rest of my life. My diet would be restricted. I would be at higher risk for high blood pressure and other complications later on. There was also the immediate surgical risk and a lengthy recovery period. But none of those warnings mattered to me. Chloe was my baby sister, the person who had looked up to me her entire life, who called me when she had nightmares as a child, who asked my advice about everything from boys to career decisions. She was fighting for her life, and I had the power to save her. When the test results came back showing I was a perfect match, I felt like it was destiny. Tyler was initially hesitant about the surgery, not because he didn't love Chloe, but because he was terrified something would happen to me during the operation. He spent hours researching donor complications and made me promise to get second opinions from other doctors. His concern was touching, and it made me love him even more. He was protecting me the way I was protecting Chloe, and I felt incredibly lucky to have a husband who cared so deeply about my well-being. The surgery was scheduled for early November, giving us several weeks to prepare mentally and physically. During that time, Chloe's condition continued to deteriorate. The dialysis treatments left her exhausted and weak. She had to take a leave of absence from teaching, which broke her heart because she missed her students terribly. Watching my vibrant, energetic sister become a shadow of herself was agonizing. Some days she could barely stay awake for an hour. At a time, I spent every free moment with her, bringing her favorite foods she was allowed to eat, watching movies in her hospital bed, and holding her hand through the painful procedures. Tyler was equally devoted, bringing her flowers every week and researching recipes that would be kidney-friendly for after the transplant. Our parents were grateful beyond words to both of us, constantly saying we were angels sent to save their daughter. The night before surgery, I stayed overnight in Chloe's hospital room. We talked about our childhood memories, our dreams for the future, and how much this second chance meant to both of us. She cried and thanked me over and over, saying she would spend the rest of her life trying to be worthy of such an incredible gift. I held her while she fell asleep, feeling more certain than ever that I was doing the right thing. The morning of November 8th arrived gray and cold, matching my nervous energy. Tyler drove me to the hospital at 5 in the morning, holding my hand tightly in the elevator up to the surgical floor. Our parents were already there, having barely slept themselves. The pre-surgical preparations felt surreal. Changing into hospital gowns, meeting with the anesthesiologist, signing final consent forms. Tyler kissed me goodbye with tears in his eyes, whispering that he loved me and would be waiting when I woke up. The surgery itself lasted nearly 6 hours. I woke up in intense pain, feeling like someone had split me open and rearranged my insides. But through the haze of medication and discomfort, the first thing I asked about was Chloe. The recovery nurse smiled and told me the transplant had been successful. My kidney was already functioning beautifully in her body, and her numbers were better than anyone had dared to hope. The next few days blurred together in a mix of pain medication, physical therapy, and overwhelming relief. Tyler barely left my side, helping me walk the hospital corridors and advocating with nurses when my pain wasn't being managed properly. Our parents split their time between Chloe's room and mine, crying tears of joy and gratitude every time they saw either of us. Chloe's recovery was remarkable. Within 48 hours, her color had returned and her energy was noticeably improved. By the time we were both discharged a week later, she looked healthier than she had in months. My recovery was more challenging. The incision site was painful for weeks, and I had to take an extended leave from work that ultimately cost me the promotion I had been working toward for 2 years. But watching Chloe return to her normal life made every sacrifice worth it. She was able to go back to teaching after the winter break, and her students welcomed her back with homemade cards and drawings. She started exercising again, dating again, and making plans for the future she thought she had lost. During our Tuesday dinners, she would often touch her side, where my kidney now lived, and thank me for giving her life back. What I didn't know during those first few months was that while I was struggling with recovery, managing chronic pain, and rebuilding my career momentum, something else entirely was beginning to develop, something that would make me question everything I thought I knew about love, loyalty, and the true cost of sacrifice. The first sign that something was wrong came during my 3-month follow-up appointment with Dr. Martinez. He was pleased with my recovery, but concerned about my blood pressure, which had been consistently elevated since the surgery. He prescribed medication and recommended stress management techniques, suggesting that my body was still adjusting to functioning with one kidney. I didn't think much of it at the time, attributing my stress to work pressures and the lingering effects of major surgery. Tyler had been incredibly supportive throughout my recovery, taking on extra household responsibilities and encouraging me to rest when I pushed myself too hard. He cooked dinner most nights, handled the grocery shopping, and made sure I took my medications on schedule. He also made sure to check on Chloe regularly, bringing her groceries when she wasn't feeling well, and driving her to medical appointments when our parents couldn't make the trip from Tucson. I was grateful for how well Tyler and Chloe got along, especially since many of my friends complained about tension between their husbands and siblings. Tyler genuinely cared about Chloe's well-being. She clearly appreciated having a brother-in-law who treated her like family. They would often text each other about surprise plans for me, or coordinate to make sure I wasn't overdoing things during my recovery.
Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story.
Looking back now, I can see signs I should have noticed. Tyler's phone buzzing constantly with text messages during dinner. Chloe knowing details about Tyler's work schedule that I didn't remember sharing with her, the way they would sometimes. Stop talking when I entered a room, claiming they were planning a surprise for my birthday or some other special occasion. But I was so focused on my own healing and supporting Chloe's continued recovery that I didn't pay attention to those small details. I trusted them both completely. Tyler was my husband, my partner, the man who had held my hand through the scariest experience of my life. Chloe was my sister, the person I had literally given a piece of my body to save. The idea that either of them would betray me seemed impossible. Our 6-month follow-up appointments were scheduled for the same day in early May. Both Chloe and I were doing well medically. Dr. Martinez was pleased with how successfully my kidney was functioning in her body. We celebrated that evening with dinner at our favorite Italian restaurant, the same place where Tyler and I had our first date 5 years earlier. Chloe looked radiant, healthier and happier than I had seen her in years. Tyler raised a toast to both of us, calling us the strongest women he knew. That night, as we were getting ready for bed, Tyler mentioned that he might need to work late the following week on a big project deadline. He worked as a software engineer for a tech startup downtown, and demanding deadlines weren't unusual. I offered to cook extra meals he could reheat and reminded him to take care of himself during the stressful period. It was Tuesday afternoon, exactly 1 week after our celebration dinner, when my entire world collapsed in the space of 30 seconds. I had left work early with a migraine, a side effect that had become more common since the surgery. Tyler's car was in our driveway, which surprised me since he had said he would be working late all week. I assumed his project had wrapped up early and felt happy that he would be home to take care of me while I wasn't feeling well. I walked through our front door calling his name, but got no response. His laptop bag was on the kitchen counter, and I could hear voices coming from upstairs. Thinking he might be on a work conference call, I quietly climbed the stairs toward our bedroom. The master bathroom door was slightly open, and I could see movement inside. What I witnessed in those next few seconds will be burned into my memory forever. My sister Chloe was sitting on our bathroom counter, completely topless, with Tyler standing between her legs. Her hands were guiding his to the surgical scar on her side, the scar that marked where my kidney now lived inside her body. Her voice was soft and seductive as she whispered words that made my blood turn to ice. "Feel how strong my heartbeat is now, Tyler. Feel how healthy I am because of what Emma gave me. She gave me life, but you make me feel truly alive for the first time." Tyler's hands were exploring her body as she spoke, and I watched in horror as my husband kissed my sister passionately. their bodies pressed together in the bathroom where I got ready for work every morning. The kidney I had sacrificed my health to give her, the surgery that had cost me a promotion and left me with chronic pain, was being used as foreplay in their affair. My legs gave out and I had to grab the doorframe to keep from collapsing.
Oh.
Migraine that had brought me home early suddenly felt insignificant compared to the crushing pain in my chest. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't process what I was seeing. These were the two people I loved most in the world, the two people I had trusted with my life, and they were using my greatest act of love as the foundation for their betrayal. The shock of what I had witnessed left me frozen in place for what felt like hours, but was probably only seconds. My mind struggled to process the impossible scene unfolding in my own bathroom. This wasn't some nightmare I would wake up from, or a misunderstanding I could rationalize away. My sister Chloe, the person whose life I had saved with my own kidney, was using that very organ as an intimate conversation piece while seducing my husband Tyler in our marital bedroom. I forced myself to back away from the doorway before they could discover me there. My hands were shaking so violently I could barely grip the banister as I carefully descended the stairs, each step feeling like I was walking through quicksand. The migraine that had brought me home early now seemed like a cruel joke from the universe, as if fate had orchestrated this moment specifically so I would witness their betrayal with perfect clarity. Once I reached the kitchen, I grabbed my purse and car keys with trembling fingers. I needed to get out of the house before they finished their encounter and found me there. The thought of having to pretend everything was normal, while the images of what I had just seen burned in my mind, was unbearable. I slipped out the front door as quietly as I had entered, my heart pounding so hard I was certain it could be heard. Throughout the neighborhood, I drove aimlessly through Phoenix for nearly an hour, my mind reeling with questions that had no satisfactory answers. How long had this been going on? When did it start? Was this the first time they had been together in my house? Or had they been carrying on their affair in my bedroom while I was at work, oblivious and trusting? The violation felt complete and devastating, as if every safe space in my life had been contaminated by their deception. Eventually, I found myself parked outside a small coffee shop in Scottsdale, 20 minutes from my house. The familiar routine of ordering a latte and finding a quiet corner booth gave me something concrete to focus on while my emotional world crumbled around me. I sat there for 3 hours, stirring my drink and trying to make sense of what I had discovered. The other customers probably thought I was having a normal afternoon coffee break, completely unaware that the woman at table 6 was processing the most devastating betrayal of her life. As the initial shock began to wear off, it was replaced by a deep, burning anger, unlike anything I had ever experienced. This wasn't just about Tyler having an affair, though that alone would have been crushing enough. This wasn't just about Chloe betraying our sisterly bond, though that cut deeper than any physical wound. This was about them using my sacrifice, my pain, my literal flesh and blood as the foundation for their deception. Every detail of the past 6 months suddenly took on new meaning. Tyler's increased concern for Chloe's well-being, which I had attributed to his caring nature, now seemed suspicious. His frequent offers to drive her to medical appointments, his insistence on checking her grocery list to make sure she was eating properly, his detailed questions about her recovery progress. I had been so grateful for his support of my family that I never questioned why he seemed more invested in Chloe's health than some of her actual relatives. Similarly, Chloe's behavior over the past few months now appeared in a completely different light. Her frequent mentions of how handsome Tyler was, comments I had dismissed as harmless sisterly appreciation. Her tendency to dress more carefully, when she knew Tyler would be around, wearing outfits that showed off her surgical scar in a way that seemed designed to draw attention to her story of survival. Her habit of calling or texting when she knew Tyler and I would be together, often with minor problems that required his immediate attention. Most painfully, I remembered the conversation we had just 2 weeks earlier during one of our Tuesday dinners. Chloe had been particularly emotional that night, crying as she talked about how grateful she was for the kidney transplant and how it had given her a new perspective on life. She had said she felt like she owed me everything and would spend the rest of her life trying to be worthy of such an incredible gift. She had hugged me tightly and whispered that I was the most selfless person she knew. She could never repay me for what I had done. Now I realized she had been speaking those words while already engaged in an affair with my husband. She had looked me in the eyes, tears streaming down her face, and delivered what I thought was a heartfelt expression of gratitude while knowing she was betraying me in the most fundamental way possible. The cruelty of that moment made me physically sick, and I had to rush to the coffee shop bathroom where I dry heaved until my stomach muscles ached. When I returned to my table, I checked my phone and found 3 missed calls from Tyler and 2 text messages. First message, sent 40 minutes after I had witnessed their encounter, read, "Hey babe, home early today. Where are you?" The second message, sent 20 minutes later, was more concerned. "Your car isn't here, but your purse was on the counter when I got home. Are you okay? Call me back." The audacity of his messages filled me with rage. He was pretending to be worried about my whereabouts, while probably still basking in the afterglow of his sexual encounter with my sister. He had likely watched Chloe leave our house and then noticed signs that I had been home, prompting him to create this elaborate show of concern in case I became suspicious. The calculated nature of his deception was almost worse than the affair itself. I realized I needed to respond to maintain the illusion that I was unaware of what had transpired. My hands shook as I typed back, "Had to leave work early with a bad migraine. Drove around for a while to clear my head. Be home soon." It felt like I was betraying myself by engaging in the same deception they had been practicing. But I knew I needed time to process what I had learned before confronting them. The drive home was surreal. I sat at red lights wondering if other drivers could somehow sense that my life had just imploded. I passed the hospital where Chloe and I had both recovered from our surgeries, the place where our family had celebrated the success of the transplant just 6 months earlier. I drove by the restaurant where we had toasted to our health and bright futures just 1 week ago. Every familiar landmark now felt tainted by the knowledge of their betrayal. Tyler was waiting for me when I walked through the front door, his face arranged in an expression of loving concern that now seemed grotesquely fake. He immediately wrapped me in a hug, asking about my migraine and suggesting I lie down while he made dinner. His hands touching me felt contaminated, knowing where those same hands had been just hours earlier. I forced myself to accept his embrace while internally recoiling from his touch. He had clearly used the time while I was gone to eliminate any evidence of Chloe's presence in our house. The bathroom showed no signs of their encounter, and he had even lit one of my favorite candles to mask any lingering scents. The attention to detail in covering his tracks revealed this was not their first secret meeting. No. This level of careful planning could only come from extensive practice in deception. That evening was torture. Tyler was particularly attentive, bringing me pain medication for my migraine, preparing my favorite soup for dinner, and suggesting we watch a romantic comedy to help me relax. Every gesture of care felt like another layer of manipulation, as if he was overcompensating for his guilt by being an especially devoted husband. I found myself analyzing every word he spoke, every expression on his face, wondering how long he had been capable of such elaborate deception. During dinner, he mentioned that he had run into Chloe at the grocery store earlier that day. According to his version of events, she had looked well and asked him to tell me she would call tomorrow to schedule our next Tuesday dinner. The casual way he lied about their encounter, incorporating just enough truth to be believable while omitting the crucial details, demonstrated a level of practiced dishonesty that chilled me to the bone. I excused myself early, claiming my migraine was worsening, and went to bed while Tyler finished cleaning the kitchen. As I lay in our marital bed, staring at the ceiling and listening to him move around downstairs, I felt like I was sharing my home with a stranger. The man I had married, the man who had held my hand through surgery and supported me through recovery, had been living a double life for months while I remained completely oblivious. Sleep was impossible that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the image of Chloe sitting on our bathroom counter, Tyler's hands on her body, both of them using my kidney as an aphrodisiac. I thought about all the nights Tyler had held me while I cried from post-surgical pain. All the times he had assured me that the sacrifice was worth it because we were saving Chloe's life. Had he already been planning their affair during those tender moments, or had their relationship developed gradually as he spent more time caring for her during my recovery? Part 3. The next morning brought no relief from the emotional devastation that had consumed me since discovering Tyler and Chloe's affair. If anything, waking up next to my husband while knowing what I knew made everything feel more surreal and painful. Tyler was already awake when I opened my eyes, propped up on his elbow, watching me with what appeared to be genuine affection. For a moment, I almost forgot what I had witnessed the day before, caught up in the familiar comfort of our morning routine. He kissed my forehead gently and asked how I was feeling, his voice soft with concern about my migraine.
How the tenderness.
In his gesture made my chest tighten with a combination of love and rage that was almost unbearable. This was the same man who had comforted me through countless difficult nights, who had promised to love and cherish me in front of our families and friends, who had been my rock during the most challenging experience of my life. Yet he was also the man who had betrayed me with my own sister in our own home. I managed to mumble something about feeling better and escaped to the shower, where I finally allowed myself to cry for the first time since the discovery. The hot water mixed with my tears as I sobbed silently, my hands pressed against the shower walls to keep myself upright. The bathroom where I stood was the same one where I had witnessed their intimate encounter just 18 hours earlier. I found myself examining every surface, wondering what else had happened there that I didn't know about. When I emerged from the bathroom, Tyler had already left for work, leaving a sweet note on my nightstand, hoping my day would be better and suggesting we order takeout from my favorite Thai restaurant for dinner. The normalcy of his gesture felt like another betrayal. How could he continue with our routine as if nothing had changed? How could he plan romantic dinners while carrying on an affair with my sister? I called in sick to work, knowing I was in no emotional state to concentrate on marketing campaigns and client meetings. Instead, I spent the morning sitting at my kitchen table with a cup of coffee that grew cold while I stared out the window at our backyard. The garden Tyler and I had planted together last spring was beginning to bloom, full of the promise of summer growth and beauty. The irony of new life flourishing while my own world died around me felt like a cruel metaphor. Around 10 in the morning, my phone rang with a call from Chloe. Seeing her name on the screen made my stomach lurch, but I knew I needed to answer, to maintain the pretense that I was unaware of her betrayal. Her voice was bright and cheerful as she asked about my migraine and suggested we meet for lunch later in the week. The casual way she chatted about mundane topics while knowing what she had done the day before was breathtaking in its cruelty. She mentioned that she had run into Tyler at the store the previous afternoon, echoing the same fabricated story he had told me at dinner. They had clearly coordinated their alibis, probably discussing what to tell me while they were still naked. In my bathroom, the thought of them planning their deception while their bodies were still intertwined made me feel physically ill again. During our conversation, Chloe sounded happier and more energetic than she had in months. There was a lightness in her voice that I had attributed to her continued recovery from the transplant, but now I realized it was probably the euphoria of new romance. She was glowing with the excitement of her secret affair, fed by the thrill of forbidden attraction and the satisfaction of having something that belonged to me. After hanging up with Chloe, I found myself walking through my house as if seeing it for the first time. Every room held memories of my relationship with Tyler, but now those memories felt contaminated by the knowledge of his deception. The kitchen, where we had cooked together and shared countless meals, now felt like a place where he had probably planned his secret meetings with my sister. The living room where we had cuddled during movie nights now seemed like a space where he had likely made phone calls to arrange their encounters while I was at work. I climbed the stairs to our bedroom and stood in the doorway of the master bathroom, trying to reconcile the sacred space where I had prepared for my wedding day with the scene of betrayal I had witnessed yesterday. The bathroom counter where Chloe had sat while seducing my husband was the same surface where I had done my makeup on our wedding morning 3 years ago. It's where I had gotten ready for job interviews and date nights and family celebrations. The violation felt complete and devastating. They hadn't just betrayed me, they had contaminated the most intimate spaces of my life. Every corner of my home now carried the potential for painful memories and suspicious questions. Would I ever be able to use that bathroom again, without thinking of what I had seen? Would I ever be able to trust Tyler when he said he was working late, or believe Chloe when she claimed to have doctor's appointments? As the day progressed, I found myself consumed with questions about the timeline of their affair. When had it started? Was it before or after the surgery? Had Tyler been attracted to Chloe while I was still in the hospital, recovering from donating my kidney? Had they bonded over their shared concern for my health, gradually developing feelings that crossed the line from appropriate to intimate? The possibility that their affair had begun while I was still recovering from surgery was particularly devastating. I remembered those early weeks when Tyler had been so attentive to both Chloe and me, driving her to appointments when our parents couldn't make the trip from Tucson, helping coordinate her medications, and ensuring she was following all post-operative instructions. I had been so grateful for his support, so proud of his caring nature, so happy that my husband and sister had developed such a close relationship. Now, I wondered if those early signs of connection had been the beginning of something more dangerous. Had Tyler been drawn to Chloe's vulnerability during her recovery? Had she turned to him for emotional support that gradually became physical attraction? The thought of them falling for each other while I was weak and dependent on pain medication made me feel sick with rage and betrayal. I spent hours that day going through my phone, looking at text messages and photos from the past 6 months. With new eyes, there were pictures from Chloe's hospital stay, where Tyler and I flanked her bed, all of us smiling with relief and hope for her recovery. There were photos from her first post-surgery family dinner, where she looked radiant and healthy while Tyler and I beamed with pride at her progress. Every image now felt like evidence of my own naivety. I found text message exchanges between Tyler and me where he had updated me on Chloe's condition after driving her to medical appointments, messages where he had suggested bringing her dinner when she wasn't feeling well, or offered to pick up her prescriptions when I was working late. I had responded to each suggestion with gratitude and love, appreciating how much he cared about my family's well-being. The realization that those caring gestures may have been motivated by romantic interest rather than familial affection was like discovering that my entire understanding of the past 6 months had been a fabrication. Every kind act now seemed suspicious. Every expression of concern now appeared to have hidden motives. The man I thought I knew and trusted had apparently been capable of deceiving me completely. While I thanked him for his compassion, Part 4, by evening, I had made a decision that would change everything. I was not going to confront Tyler and Chloe immediately with what I had discovered. I was not going to collapse into tears and demand explanations that would likely result in more lies and manipulation. Instead, I was going to investigate the full scope of their betrayal before revealing my knowledge. I needed to understand exactly what I was dealing with before deciding how to respond. The decision brought me a strange sense of calm and purpose that I hadn't felt since witnessing their affair. For the first time in 24 hours, I felt like I had some control over the situation. While Tyler and Chloe believed they had successfully hidden their relationship from me, I would be gathering evidence and planning my response. The balance of power was about to shift dramatically in my favor. Tyler came home from work that evening. I was in the kitchen preparing dinner as if it were any other Tuesday night. He wrapped his arms around me from behind while I stirred pasta sauce, nuzzling my neck in a gesture that had always made me melt with affection. Now his touch felt calculated and false, but I forced myself to lean back into his embrace and respond normally to his questions about my day. Over dinner, I asked about his work project and listened to his detailed explanation of coding challenges and client demands. He seemed relaxed and comfortable, showing no signs of guilt or anxiety about his secret afternoon encounter with my sister. His ability to compartmentalize his deception was almost impressive in its thoroughness. He was either a much better actor than I had ever realized, or he felt no remorse whatsoever about betraying me. I mentioned casually that Chloe had called earlier and suggested we all have dinner together over the weekend to celebrate her continued good health. Tyler's face brightened with what appeared to be genuine enthusiasm as he agreed that it would be nice to spend time together as a family. The ease with which he embraced the idea of socializing with both his wife and his secret lover simultaneously revealed a level of emotional detachment that was chilling. After dinner, while Tyler watched Television in the living room, I retreated to our home office and began my investigation in earnest. I started with our cell phone account, logging into the website to review our usage details for the past 6 months. What I discovered there made my blood run cold with a mixture of rage and vindication. Tyler and Chloe had been exchanging text messages constantly, sometimes sending over 50 messages to each other in a single day. The frequency had increased dramatically in the past 3 months, with some days showing more communication between them than Tyler and I had exchanged. They were texting each other during work hours, late at night, and early in the morning. The pattern revealed a level of intimate daily communication that went far beyond the casual family relationship I had believed they shared. More disturbing was the timing of their heaviest communication periods. Some of their longest text conversations had occurred on nights when Tyler had told me he was working late, or during weekends when Chloe had claimed to be attending medical appointments or visiting friends. They had been using my trust in both of them to create opportunities for extended private communication. I also noticed patterns in their phone calls that were deeply troubling. They had spoken on the phone for over an hour on the night before my 3-month post-surgery checkup, probably discussing how to present themselves as appropriately concerned family members rather than secret lovers. They had exchanged multiple calls on the morning of Chloe's most recent follow-up appointment, likely coordinating their stories about her health status and recovery progress. Next, I moved to our credit card statements, which I accessed through our online banking system. Tyler and I had always shared complete financial transparency, so reviewing our expenses felt routine until I began looking for charges that seemed suspicious or unexplained. What I found there was even more devastating than the phone records. Over the past 4 months, there were dozens of charges at restaurants, coffee shops, and even a few hotels that I had never visited. The restaurants were all places Tyler had never taken me, located in parts of Phoenix where neither of us worked or had any reason to visit. The hotel charges were particularly damning, including afternoon charges at mid-range hotels near the airport in downtown, always during weekdays when I would have been at work. The dates of these suspicious charges corresponded perfectly with days when Tyler had told me he was working late on important projects, or when Chloe had mentioned having various appointments or commitments that would keep her busy. They had been systematically lying to me for months, creating elaborate covers for their romantic getaways, while I remained completely unaware of their deception. One hotel charge from 6 weeks earlier particularly stood out because it was dated the same day I had texted Tyler about feeling depressed and lonely due to ongoing pain from my surgery. He had responded with loving messages about how proud he was of my strength and how much he loved me, promising to come home early to take care of me. According to the credit card statement, he had been at a hotel with my sister when he sent those compassionate messages, probably typing them while lying in bed with her after having sex. The cruelty of that discovery was almost unbearable. I had been struggling with physical pain and emotional vulnerability related to my sacrifice for Chloe. Tyler had been comforting himself in her arms at a hotel charged to our joint credit card account. They had used my money to fund their affair, while I suffered the consequences of my selfless decision to save my sister's life. I printed out copies of the most damning phone records and credit card statements, organizing them chronologically, to create a clear timeline of their affair. The evidence was overwhelming and irrefutable. They had been carrying on an intensive romantic relationship for at least 4 months, possibly longer, while maintaining elaborate facades of innocence and family loyalty. The paperwork spread across my desk told the story of a calculated and sustained betrayal that went far beyond a moment of weakness or confusion. This was not a brief affair driven by temporary attraction or emotional vulnerability. This was a full-blown relationship, complete with regular communication, romantic dates, and hotel encounters, all funded by the joint accounts I shared with my husband. As I sat surrounded by the evidence of their deception, I felt a strange sense of vindication mixed with profound sadness. I had not been paranoid or suspicious without cause. My instincts about their changed behavior had been correct. Even though I had dismissed my concerns as post-surgical anxiety and stress, they had been lying to me extensively and systematically, treating me like a fool while I trusted them both completely. The question now was what to do with this information. I could confront them immediately, demanding explanations and apologies that would likely result in more lies and attempts at manipulation. I could file for divorce without warning, using the evidence to protect myself legally and financially. Or I could continue gathering information, trying to understand the full scope of their betrayal before deciding on my response. Part 5. The next morning, I woke up with a clarity of purpose that surprised me. After spending the previous evening documenting the extensive evidence of Tyler and Chloe's affair, I felt like I had regained some control over my situation. While they continued to believe they had successfully deceived me, I now possessed detailed knowledge of their activities and could plan my response accordingly. Tyler was already in the shower when I woke up, and I used those few minutes alone to hide the printed phone records and credit card statements in a secure location where he would never think to look. I had chosen a sealed plastic bag inside an old shoebox in the back of my closet, behind winter clothes that wouldn't be disturbed until next year. The evidence needed to be preserved carefully in case I decided to pursue legal action later. Over breakfast, Tyler mentioned that he might need to work late again that evening, claiming his supervisor had requested additional revisions on the project that had supposedly kept him busy all week. Now that I knew the truth about his activities, his lies seemed almost offensively transparent. He was probably planning another hotel encounter with Chloe, secure in his belief that I remained completely unaware of their relationship. I responded with understanding and support, even offering to pack him a dinner to eat at the office if he would be working through the evening. My performance was so convincing that Tyler smiled with genuine appreciation, kissing me goodbye with apparent affection before leaving for work. The ease with which I could now match his deception with my own was both empowering and deeply sad. After Tyler left, I called my workplace and took another personal day, citing ongoing complications from my migraine. My supervisor was understanding, reminding me that I had significant sick leave accumulated and encouraging me to take whatever time I needed to recover fully. If only she knew I was taking time off to investigate my husband's affair with my sister, rather than dealing with medical issues. I spent the morning developing a comprehensive plan for gathering additional evidence without alerting Tyler or Chloe to my knowledge of their affair. I needed to be strategic and careful, collecting information that would be useful if I decided to file for divorce while maintaining the pretense that I remained oblivious to their betrayal. My first priority was accessing Tyler's laptop, which he had left at home in his rush to get to work on time. He had never been secretive about his computer password. I had occasionally used his laptop for personal projects when my own computer was having technical issues. Now, I would be using that access for a very different purpose. Tyler's email accounts revealed even more damaging information than I had expected. He had created a separate Gmail account specifically for communicating with Chloe using a username that combined both of their initials in a way that seemed romantic and intimate. The email history in this account went back nearly 5 months, providing a detailed record of their developing relationship that was both heartbreaking and infuriating to read. The earliest emails showed Tyler offering emotional support during Chloe's recovery from surgery, expressing concern about her adjustment to life with a transplanted kidney, and offering to help with practical matters, like grocery shopping and transportation to medical appointments. His messages were kind and caring, exactly the sort of support I would have expected from a devoted brother-in-law helping his wife's family during a medical crisis. But within just a few weeks, the tone of their emails had shifted from familial concern to something more personal and intimate. Tyler began sharing details about his own emotional state, describing how watching Chloe's recovery had made him think about life and mortality in ways he had never considered before. Chloe responded with increasingly personal revelations about her fears, her gratitude, and her growing attachment to Tyler as someone who truly understood what she was going through. By the 3rd month after surgery, their emails had become unmistakably romantic. Tyler wrote about how beautiful Chloe looked when she smiled, how her strength during recovery had made him admire her in ways that confused and excited him. Chloe responded with messages about how Tyler made her feel special and desired in ways she had never experienced, how she looked forward to his emails more than anything else in her day. The progression from appropriate family support to romantic attachment was documented in excruciating detail through their email exchanges. I could see exactly when their relationship had crossed the line from innocent concern to emotional affair, and eventually to the physical relationship I had witnessed in my bathroom just 2 days earlier. Reading Tyler's messages to Chloe was like discovering that my husband was a completely different person than I had believed. He wrote to her with passion and intensity that he had never shown in his communications with me, even during our early dating period. He described feelings and desires that seemed deeper and more authentic than anything he had ever expressed about our marriage. In one particularly devastating email from 6 weeks earlier, Tyler had written to Chloe about how conflicted he felt about his growing feelings for her. He acknowledged that their relationship was inappropriate and potentially devastating to me, but he also confessed that he had never felt such a strong connection with anyone before. He described being with Chloe as feeling like he was finally becoming the person he was meant to be. Chloe's response to that email was even more painful to read. She wrote about how guilty she felt about betraying me after everything I had done for her, but she also expressed feeling like Tyler was her reward for surviving such a frightening medical crisis. She described their relationship as feeling destined, as if my kidney donation had been the universe's way of bringing them together. The casual way they discussed their betrayal of me, acknowledging my sacrifice while using it as justification for their affair, was breathtaking in its selfishness and cruelty. They both recognized that I had given Chloe life and had supported Tyler through the stress of her illness. But rather than feeling grateful or protective of me, they had decided that my generosity somehow entitled them to pursue their own happiness at my expense. I printed the most damning emails and added them to my growing collection of evidence, my hands shaking with rage as I read Tyler's passionate declarations of love for my sister. These were not the confused ramblings of a man experiencing a temporary attraction. These were the heartfelt communications of someone who believed he had found his soulmate, was willing to destroy his marriage to be with her. By the time I finished reviewing Tyler's emails, it was early afternoon. I realized I needed to prepare for his return home that evening. He would be expecting me to behave normally, probably planning to leave for another romantic encounter with Chloe while I remained innocently unaware of their ongoing affair. I spent the afternoon cleaning the house and preparing dinner, using the familiar domestic routine to maintain my emotional equilibrium while processing the devastating information I had uncovered. Every mundane task felt surreal when performed. With the knowledge that my marriage was already over, even though Tyler didn't realize it yet, the most difficult part was deciding how long to continue gathering evidence before confronting them with what I knew. Part of me wanted to end the charade immediately, to stop pretending I was oblivious while they continued deceiving me. But I also recognized that having comprehensive documentation of their affair would be crucial if I decided to pursue divorce proceedings. I also needed time to think about what I wanted my future to look like once this crisis was resolved. Did I want to try to save my marriage if Tyler was willing to end his relationship with Chloe and commit to rebuilding our trust? Did I want to maintain any relationship with Chloe after her betrayal? Or would I need to cut her out of my life completely? How would I handle the family dynamics with our parents who remained unaware of the situation? When Tyler came home that evening, he was carrying flowers and a bottle of my favorite wine, claiming he had decided to surprise me since I had been feeling unwell recently. His gesture of romantic attention felt like another layer of manipulation, as if he was trying to assuage his guilt about his affair by being an especially attentive husband. Over dinner, he asked detailed questions about my day and expressed concern about my ongoing recovery from the kidney donation surgery. He mentioned that he had been thinking about planning a vacation for us once I was feeling completely healthy, suggesting we visit some of the destinations we had talked about before Chloe's illness had consumed our attention and resources. His apparent desire to plan for our future together while simultaneously maintaining an affair with my sister was almost incomprehensible to me. Did he really believe he could continue both relationships indefinitely? Is he planning to eventually choose between Chloe and me? Or did he somehow imagine a scenario where he could keep us both without either of us discovering the truth? When Tyler announced after dinner that he needed to return to the office for a few hours to finish his project, I responded with understanding and encouragement. I even suggested he take some leftover dinner with him in case he got hungry while working late. My performance was so convincing that Tyler seemed genuinely grateful for my support, kissing me with what appeared to be real affection before leaving for what I knew was actually another romantic encounter with my sister. After he left, I sat alone in our living room, surrounded by the evidence of our life together, wedding photos and vacation souvenirs and shared books and furniture we had chosen together. Everything felt hollow and false now, contaminated by the knowledge of Tyler's deception. I wondered how many other evenings he had left me alone under false pretenses to spend time with Chloe. Many lies he had told while I trusted him completely. The hardest part was accepting that the man I had fallen in love with and married might never have truly existed. The Tyler who had comforted me through surgery and recovery, who had supported my decision to donate my kidney to save Chloe's life, who had held me while I cried from post-operative pain, had apparently been capable of this level of sustained deception all along. As I prepared for bed that night, I made a final decision about my investigation. I would give myself one more week to gather additional evidence and plan my response. And then I would confront them both with everything I had discovered. I deserved to know the full truth about their affair, and they deserved to face the consequences of their choices. But first, I was going to test them one more time, to see just how deep their deception ran and whether either of them was capable of honesty when given the opportunity to come clean. I had a plan that would reveal their true characters once and for all, and I was finally ready to take back control of my own life. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.